Hello everybody, how's it going? I'm the Timmeister and welcome to a brand new City Skylines series. I'm super excited to present to you guys the Timbukton region. Now it's not going to be one city in particular, but rather a collection of small towns, rural areas, farmland. The Timbukton region is going to offer a wide range of scenic areas. The town you just saw is the small touristic fishing town of Aberdeen, which lies on the outskirts of Timbukton, which is the main city in the Timbukton region. There's going to be a whole host of different styles of little towns, little villages. The entire region is going to be filled with many landmarks. The city of Timbukton itself is located on the eastern shore of Aurelia, which is a fictional country that I created a few years ago. Here is a map of Aurelia, which is still a work in progress. Some of you may be familiar with that country if you watch any videos on my other channel, Freeway Tim, but I will do a video at some point explaining all the ins and outs of that fictional country. So like many of my City Skylines projects, I like to mimic real-life areas without exactly copying them. So for Timbukton, we're going to go for a northern New England / Atlantic Canadian sort of vibe. So I'm super excited to get started on this project because I'm familiar with this area and I'd like to familiarize you guys too with the part of the world that I live in. So a lot of people are recreating New York, London, major cities around the world, and I want to step away from that a little bit and step into the more rural parts of the world. So in this case, it's going to be, like I said, New England and the Atlantic Canadian provinces. So we're going to host a whole bunch of different sceneries. We're going to do the logging industries of Maine, we're going to do the coastal fishing regions of Nova Scotia, the farming regions of Prince Edward Island, and the beach regions of New Brunswick. Maybe even throw in a little bit of Newfie in there. So it's going to be a whole plethora of different sceneries, different styles. One of the most interesting aspects of this project that I'm most excited to work on is the actual city of Timbukton. It's going to be based on Portland, Maine, with a little bit of Halifax, Nova Scotia, and maybe mix in some St. John, New Brunswick. It's sort of the same size of all those cities, so maybe 150, 200,000 people at the most. We'll see how it goes in the game. But what I'm most excited for this city is it's not going to be as large as Aubrey City, for example, so I think that it's very possible to get everything done. We can focus a lot more on each individual section of the city, get a lot more detail, and get a lot more attachment to the city. At this point, I feel like Aubrey City feels a little bit artificial at this point, and I'd like to feel more connected to this project. But don't worry, Aubrey City is far from being dead. And now we're going to go into details on how this entire region is going to be divided. Alright, so this is the map that we're dealing with for this project, and this is how the map is going to be divided. So there's going to be 4 separate counties, and within each of those counties will be a capital. I know in the States you have like the seat of the county, and I'm not exactly sure how the whole system works, but in this case every county is going to have its own little capital. Now obviously in the Timbukton County, the city of Timbukton is going to be the capital and the largest city in the region, but each county is going to have a little town for a capital. Each county is also going to feature a different theme. So let me explain what I mean by theme. So Aberdeen County is going to be the main fishing industry for the entire region. Algonquin is going to be the main forestry. Burton County is going to be, I guess, a mix of tourism and farmland, because as you can see, it's quite a flat area. except you have that large mountain in the lower right corner. And obviously Timbukton is going to be, I guess, a mix of all three. There's going to be a little bit of fishing, not so much agriculture because it is quite a rocky region. But I guess we could replace that for maybe high-tech industries or manufacturing. We'll see what we can do. It's probably going to be a mix of all three. But anyways, that's a little bit of the plan for this region. Now, before we jump right into it, I'd like to just explain how this whole concept came to be. And the inspiration behind Timbukton is actually from SimCity 4. Now, this is a region that I built, I'd say like 4 or 5 years ago. And it's one of the only regions that I actually finished to 100% completion. The entire region is filled up, not with, civilization. Much of the region is just filled in with trees, but nonetheless, it was a hell of a project to build, and I'm so proud that I was actually able to finish it. So this map is actually completely inspired by that region. All the city locations are going to be exactly the same, although in City Skylines I'm going to add a whole bunch of different locations, small villages, maybe a town here or two, and it's going to be the City Skylines version of Rockport, which I renamed to Timbukton. I thought the name fit a little bit better. Is going to be a little bit more complete than SimCity 4. So there's going to be a lot more to see, a lot more to do, hiking trails. There's going to be a large national park within Algonquin County. I have a whole set list of different things planned for the region, and I'm just so excited to get started on that. So throughout this series, I'm going to be going back and forth from City Skylines to SimCity 4 just to give you guys a general idea what the plan is for one specific area. And I'd like to keep the entire region similar, but not exactly identical to how it was built in SimCity 4. So it's not going to be any worse. In fact, I'm going to be adding a lot onto what was built in SimCity 4. So you guys should expect some pretty complete content. One thing that I'm really excited to do is an airport for Timbukton, which I hadn't built in SimCity 4. There's going to be a whole touristic area, beach area in Burton County. I don't want to spoil too much, but it just gives you an idea of how complete this map is going to be. Hopefully, if everything goes to plan and time is on my side for this project, we can hopefully create a very, very nice project out of this. So without further ado, let's hop right into this. So I decided to begin with the town of Aberdeen. I'm not really sure why, I just felt like doing it at the time. And the first thing that I started to do was to create Aubrey City's fishing port, or fishing marina. There's going to be a yacht club, all sorts of stuff. But I decided to start with the fishing pier or harbor, whatever you want to call it. That's what I decided to do first. It's this new harbor pack that just released at this time. It's probably like a 3... Alright, so without further ado, let's jump right into it. So here we are in Aberdeen. I decided to start with the town of Aberdeen. Not really sure why, I guess I just felt like it at the time. And the first thing I wanted to do in Aberdeen is to create the fishing port. There's a new harbor asset pack that was just released on the workshop maybe a couple weeks ago, and it's absolutely great to work with, very simple. You just need to have a little bit of patience to get everything to fit right, but in general it's very pleasant to use. The results that you can get from it are very, very good. So basically the way it works is you have these blank platforms, as you can see right now, and you have to plop those one by one. And what can be a little bit time consuming is plopping the walls on each side of those platforms. And to get them just right, you need to play around with them with the Move It tool. It can take a little bit of time, but like I said, the results are totally worth it. And as you can see here, this looks pretty awesome, and this is just the beginning. The asset pack also came with a bunch of different details for them. So for example, you can put ladders on the side of your little harbor, or you can put tires or little bumpers for boats so they don't get damaged. You can also have these little parking stones. So it comes with various props. I think you also have like a fuel tank or something. But anyways, I'm gonna use a whole bunch of different props and textures that come from various packs, and the result is just really good. I'll also mention that the editing style in this series is going to be a little bit different than what I'm used to. I think what I want to do, and we'll see as the series progresses, is I'm going to cover a lot more per episode, but I'm going to skip through footage a lot more. So for example, where in Aubrey City, I'll maybe play the game for 4 or 5 hours and, you know, edit with whatever footage I have and, you know, make a video with that. But in this case, at the time that I was editing the video at this point, I had already invested about 10 hours in Aberdeen alone. So that's way too much footage to cover one video. So Aberdeen's probably going to be I'd say 3 or 4 episodes in length, but I'm not going to feature every single minute of footage that I've captured in Aberdeen. So I'm going to be skipping around a lot and basically giving you guys a general idea of what I've created without actually showing you the whole thing. So for example, like this harbor we're building here. So I showed you a little bit at the beginning, but you guys get the point after a couple minutes. So I don't want it to get too monotonous and boring. So yeah, that's basically the what the plan is going to be. So for Aberdeen, it's going to be the second largest fishing town right after the city of Timbukton, of course. And it's also going to be one of the most touristic towns as well. So right above our fishing port is going to be Aubrey City's downtown. It's going to host various shops, little boutiques, craft stores, you name it. And the inspiration from this town comes from a few different towns around the Maritimes and Maine. This summer I had the opportunity to travel to Bar Harbor as well as Old Orchard Beach and a whole bunch of different areas around southern Maine. And I also took some time to visit a little town which I've gone many times before when I was a kid, and that is St. Andrews, New Brunswick. So St. Andrews is just a little town of a couple thousand people. It's a very touristic region, and it's actually one of the most popular regions from US travelers in the Maritimes. So it's a quite popular spot. It hosts many attractions. There's a large hotel called the Algonquin Hotel. It's one of the most famous hotels in the Maritimes. There's also an aquarium, there's a golf course, all sorts of stuff you can visit. So Aberdeen will have the same sort of feel. Although Aberdeen's going to be quite a bit bigger than St. Andrews, we're going to have a couple of supermarkets, and it's just going to have a larger population, larger size. So there'll be more to do in the fictional Aberdeen. And Aberdeen will also be the 3rd largest municipality in the region of Timbukton. Alright, so we have downtown, which is starting to shape up. We have a little bit more of Eastern Main Street to add, and for this part, I wasn't really decided on what the whole theme would look like, and I was just trying out some different building styles, and I thought, you know, Aberdeen might benefit from a low-level office building, but in the end I decided to abandon the office building and just resort to older buildings, typically, you know, 1800s, early 1900s style buildings, like you would find in pretty much any old North American towns. And what I'm doing right now is adding a little bit of industries to our port. This is largely a fishing port, so maybe add a refinery or whatever you want to pretend this is. We have some warehouses in the middle where fish would be stored. And again, this is all old buildings, right? Because Aberdeen is a very old fishing town. It's been around for many years, over 100 years, and buildings are starting to show their age, but it also adds to the character of the town. This is why people visit towns like these, is to explore the history, the culture, and you know, generally towns will try to preserve their older buildings as much as possible, and Aberdeen is no exception. Now on Aubrey City's wharf, I wanted to add little mom and pop restaurants, seafood restaurants, and this is what I'm going to do right now. So in the middle of the wharf, I wanted to create this little pedestrian boulevard with little restaurants on each side, and right where the Corrales restaurant is where that boulevard is going to be. So I'm going to lay down a pedestrian path, and I'm going to line it with trees, add a little bit of detail here and there. And what was pretty challenging about this area is I was going through the Plop It mod, which allows you to plop pretty much any building in the game, and I found the building that I want. The only problem is that building is within the leisure commercial area. So in order to plop that building, I would have to plop an individual zone just for this building. But where the challenge came in was I couldn't zone around the building too far, because then I wasn't able to add any regular commercial buildings. So it was quite tricky to get that little restaurant to fit in. I believe that comes up in a couple of minutes here. And again, I'm trying to try with different office buildings, see which one fits better. And like I said, I just end up giving up on that whole idea and just sticking with some old buildings. And I think I end up plopping a little hospital here. It's more of a European style building, but I think it fits quite well in this area. You'll see in a second here. So here I'm just plopping down some back streets where we're going to fit some residential sections a little bit later. And like many other older small towns, typically the streets are tree lined with very old and mature trees. And I really like that look. It just fills everything in. It makes almost like a tunneling effect. And that's something that I find looks very neat. So for this episode, we're going to focus more on downtown, and probably in the next episode, we're going to get into the outskirts of Aberdeen, so into some suburbs, more of the some large supermarkets. Well, they're not going to be large because it's still a small town, but we're going to have a I guess medium-sized supermarket, and we're also going to get into building all these city civics, such as a high school, fire truck stations, police stations, get into all that interesting stuff. So for downtown, in terms of housing, I wanted to stick more towards a classic Victorian style. Now there's not much of a Victorian presence on the workshop, so you have to make do with what you got. So I have a lot of pre-World War II housing, which we're going to use a lot, and we're going to use whatever we have in terms of Victorian style. Alright, so now we're going to work on that boulevard that I was talking about a minute ago. So here we have the main path. It's going to be lined with trees on each side. We're going to have some benches, some little tables where people can eat at the little stores on each side. So it's going to be a pretty popular spot in town. Aberdeen will also host various activities such as whale watching, boat tours, things like that. So the area needs to accommodate a high volume of tourists who are waiting to go out on boats, do various activities, so there has to be lots to do. So on the boulevard we have little gift shops, we have restaurants, takeout, seafood restaurants, you name it, we have the whole works. This little outdoor storage container restaurant thing that we have up in the upper left corner, that's gonna go a little bit later in the episode, and I'm gonna replace that for a touristic seafood restaurant, and it fits perfectly in that location. So we're gonna add some parking as well, and in a few minutes we're gonna texture the whole area. So yeah, this is all pretty exciting for me. This is a project that I've been looking forward to for a little while now, and I'm really excited to showcase it to you guys. So I hope you're on board. I hope you're as excited as I am, because I think this is going to be pretty fun. It's going to be a pretty awesome series. I'm quite confident. Alright, so anyways, back to the game. Aberdeen is a very old town, and we're going to make it look the part. So we're going to texture the whole area. We're going to add some cracks everywhere, some pavement patches, make it look like it's been through quite a bit. And now we're going to get into a park. I wasn't really too sure what I wanted to fill this empty lot in with, so I decided why not just fill it with a park. Save me a little bit of trouble. So the whole park's going to be fenced in. There's going to be a little play area, and it's going to be a nice little relaxing spot for both tourists and the residents of Aberdeen. Okay guys, so we're nearing the end of the episode now, and I couldn't be more happy to be starting this region, this whole big project. I'm super excited, and like I said, I hope you guys are as excited as I am. This should be a pretty fun build, and it's something, you know, it's a build that I can sort of relate to, you know, being in a region, a very rural region, you know, small towns everywhere. And I mean, even the biggest cities around me aren't that big. Halifax is the biggest city in the Maritimes, and that's only like 400,000 people. It's a decent sized city, but the closest big city to me would be Quebec City, which is like 8 hours away, and I think that comes close to like 1 million people. I'm not too sure. But anyways, this project should be pretty fun, and the fact that we're only building, you know, a small to medium-sized city means that we can focus a lot more on each individual district of that city, and the whole project should be a little less overwhelming. Anyways guys, that's it for today. So if you liked this video, which I hope you did, please give it a thumbs up. Also subscribe to my channel for much more content on the way. And until the next episode guys, please take care.